Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Go 24/7 podcast live edition here on a Monday night. Typically, this is going to be on Sundays after the game where we talk about what happened, what went right. But my name is Bryce Koon alongside Dylan Sanders. Dylan, it looks like tonight we're going to be talking what went wrong in a game that was just really uh, a tale of two halves. We're going to kind of go in depth. We're going to answer questions. Make sure to get your comments in here. Also, if you're listening to this after the fact, live every single Sunday night, 6 p.m., kind of recapping Dylan and I co-hosting this. I don't know what we're going to call it, Dylan. Like go live, go live. I don't know what we're going to call it. I mean, it'll be fun. But Dylan, how are you feeling now? Around we're almost at the 24-hour mark of kickoff last night. What is? Let's just say how you feel.
I am feeling about, 3 times as good as I was last night at about 10 p.m. I'm feeling better. Mostly because with some space, most of the issues are fixable. Obviously not something you want to have happen, but you take a look at the first game and you make adjustments from there. Florida State, better team, point out period. And the LSU just didn't make the adjustments that they preached all off season, and now they have another shot to like go back to the drawing board, see what works. The one adjustment they did make, everyone hated, and yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Fixable is what some of this stuff is.
Yeah, fixable. Let's just dive in right here. I mean, there's no reason for us to kind of rehash everything that really happened. I mean, look, we know first half. Uh, I want to spend a lot of time talking about the second half, Dylan. The first half, for me, was a game of it was a time of missed opportunities. To me, LSU should have never been in the situation that they were in that second half. They should have been able to. I don't know. They should have been able to kind of navigate their way. Wanted to get some of your thoughts on this because the first half for me, obviously, we talk about the fourth down, the fourth and goal. I don't know about you. Glenn and I were joking in the press box at the game. Was it on your bingo card that Trey Bradford was going to get the first touch as a running back? Like, no, not for me. Kind of walk me through how did you feel about the first half? And did you have a sick feeling in your stomach kind of heading in the second half, knowing you had left multiple chances to score out there on the field?
I felt, yeah, I definitely felt like it was like, man, this game should not be as good. But I kind of felt like both teams really had an argument to say, hey, we should be up by a lot more right now. Florida State had the drops. Florida State had a lot of really bad penalties, and LSU had the missed red zone opportunities. A lot of people say, hey, you missed you should have kicked the field goals. I'm not really too worried about it because in the end, 6 points did not decide this game. But maybe 2 touchdowns would. You needed to score touchdowns to win this game, and so that's really why I wasn't regretting the decision to go for it. Had one of those touchdowns worked, it would have been okay. You take your chances. The chances didn't work out, and then it was a lot of other stuff that ruined the game in the fourth. I if anything, I kind of felt like even though it was a 3-point lead, kind of a clean slate going into the second half because both teams had missed opportunities, had self-imposed mistakes that really they had a chance to fix, and one team didn't, and the other team went completely in the other opposite direction.
And it went fast too. That was something that was really, really interesting to kind of watch as well. Real quick note for you: we're live here on YouTube and Twitter. We're going to be starting to go live on Facebook next week. If you're on Twitter, unfortunately, we can't see your comments, so it's a good reason for you to come over to the YouTube channel if you want to comment. Bring your questions, bring your concerns, bring your thoughts. Because look, Dylan, this. I'll start it with this. We're going to have these shows. This is a little more of kind of the laid back approach, kind of, you sip your coffee, you kind of take in what happened from the night before. This was my first time covering LSU. You know me, I have zero ties to LSU in the sense of, family members going there. Like we joked about it. Like the first time I came here was the first time I'd ever stepped foot inside the state of Louisiana. So there's really no ties. Obviously, when you look at the second half, I don't think, and me having grown up in SEC country, I don't think I've ever seen an LSU team get physically dominated like they did in this game, especially in the second half, because you started to see, and I want to ask you this, you started to see them start to impose their will, especially in the run game later on. Like I think LSU's front seven did well against the run game until it was too late and you're gassed and it's the fourth quarter. I want to take us back to the physical and aggressive nature of Florida State. To me, the Seminoles set the tone, and it was kind of a weird way with the 5 penalties in the first half. Yes, were they careless? Yes, were they kind of up and down? But here's the thing for me. It showed that Florida State was ready to bring it to LSU. I know it's kind of a weird thing. I want to get your take on that because I don't know that there's ever a good personal foul penalty, but I think it showed the mindset, and what ended up happening in that game was, look, Florida State just took it too. They were attacking for a full 60 minutes, and to me, that's one of the big reasons why they won this football game.
Yeah, it just seemed like in the second half, one team wanted it more. Maybe one team, the vibe, and honestly, it kind of got admitted after the game is that Brian Kelly, Jaden Daniels both kind of said, we're not the team we thought we were. That is the quote of the press conference. And maybe it felt like one team that kind of expected to win and the other team that wanted to win is kind of how the game felt to me at a lot of times. And then once, and this isn't just a football thing. If you go into something expecting to have a good time and a couple things start to go bad, you really lose focus and lose interest, and you get down on yourself.
Yeah.
And if you really want something, if you're hungry for it and something goes bad, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to keep going. And that's kind of what it felt like in this game. Florida State wanted it more, and they were hungrier, and they felt like they needed to win as opposed to felt like they should win is kind of how I felt.
I thought it was interesting, Brian Kelly making the comments of the kind of the expectation, like you mentioned. And, it's already kind of got picked up by, news sources over in Athens about, the comments of the 2-time national champions. Like, I think that LSU kind of walked into this game and they thought, hey, we're the big bad LSU Tigers. We're the big bad SEC team. Dylan, I'm going to tell you right now. I tweeted this out. I threw it on the boards. You got to give credit to Florida State. I never denied. And look, there were some folks out there that just refused, in my opinion, to acknowledge the fact that Florida State is a really good football team, like a very good football team. Veterans everywhere. Guys like Jordan Travis who have kind of paid their dues in the sense they took their lumps as younger players, and now they're poised with a ton of experience. I said this on our Instant Reaction podcast last night with Glenn. It would surprise me when you look at the rest of their schedule, if they can navigate it with maybe, at least just one loss regular season, maybe undefeated. That's a team. That was a performance of a playoff team way early in the season. It's way too early to be talking about the playoff, and I agree with that. But I don't know, man. To me, it was like that. And then I want to throw this out here. We're going to get into this conversation. You know where I'm going. It's the Jaden Daniels conversation. And so I'm going to give my take on this. You didn't lose the game because of Jaden Daniels. You lost the game because you couldn't run the ball with any running backs. I mean, Daniels was 15 carries, 64 yards. Josh Williams, 4 carries for 44. But Dylan, if you take away the 35-yard run, he's the leading rusher with 11 yards or 9 yards at the running back position. Noah Cain, 4 for 4. Trey Bradford, 4 for 1. Abysmal. I mean, just abysmal. You can't run the ball. And then I'll even throw this out here with Jaden Daniels in this sense. I mean, I sit in this camp. The people who don't want Jaden Daniels to be the quarterback at LSU, they've made up their mind. So the arguments that have happened, it's not going to change their mind. Like I don't even think a win, because I've seen it from afar, and the way you and I've talked, I don't even think a win on Sunday night would have changed the minds of Jaden Daniels. They would still be calling for Garrett Nussmeier. So, Daniels' stats are definitely inflated, with the garbage time touchdown. I understand. I do believe there is I will say this. I was surprised kind of in the unwillingness to throw the ball down the field. I think that there is a mental clock issue with Jaden Daniels in the sense of when he starts to feel the pressure, the confidence. I think his confidence really takes a hit in games that we kind of see when things aren't going right, and it's kind of that response to adversity. It's the question that I asked him. So I want to get your thought on the Jaden Daniels sequence. I kind of know how you feel about it, but just I think it's a good conversation to have because we have to just realize at this point, Daniels is probably who he is, and the people who don't like him and don't want him to be the quarterback are who they are, and they've made their decision. And there's really just you're not going to change that.
Well, the thing is, again, I was also really shocked that the ball wasn't really thrown down the field. There weren't a lot of deep shots, but you know what? The most shocking thing to me is, and I'm going to bring up a couple stats. Shout out to Pro Football Focus for charting a lot of this stuff. Jaden actually threw more passes of 20 more yards than Jordan Travis did last night. Actually, I think they threw the same amount. I think they both threw 3. And of course, Jaden's was that garbage time touchdown. So that, I mean, at that point, that wasn't what lost them the game. They talked a lot about making explosive plays out of just getting the ball to your playmakers, and we saw that in the first play of the game to Trey Bradford. Again, still shocking. We saw that in the first play. It looks really, really good, and we were like, oh, okay, like. They talked about this. Maybe they won't throw it deep that much, but they're still going to get that explosive play. But whenever you get, get balls that are a little bit behind, or even if they're on target, they're dropped, it's hard to get the offense going. It wasn't the deep shots. And, this wasn't Jaden's game. It wasn't his best game. It wasn't his worst game, even, I would say.
He had no help, Dylan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I said, like, he didn't the idea that a quarterback's going to go out there and do everything to me is like just nuts, because when you have a combined running game, aside from a 35-yard carry that totals, and I'm going to look, I don't have an LSU education, but I can still do a little bit of math. 9 yards from Josh Williams taking away the 35-yard carry, 4 yards for Noah Cain, Trey Bradford with 1.
Mm-hmm. You want
like
okay?
That's,
so
yeah.
one of the favorite analytical stats in the country is adjusted completion percentage. That accounts for drops, stuff like that. And Jaden Daniels, last night, his completion percentage at the end of the game 59.5%. Adjusted completion percentage is 73. That is counting in 3 drops. 3 drops. So 12% of his passes were dropped. You can't have that.
And you can't have that. And we're just, look, once again, just brutally honest. I mean, Kyron Lacey's drop on the slant route over the middle changed the complexion of that football game.
Yeah.
From a mental standpoint, it gave Florida State. And look, Florida State had their fair share of drops, but it happened in the first half. I think the biggest thing for me, and you hit the nail right on the head with kind of the analytical and kind of putting this together, when you bring in the analytics and you bring in the kind of the human element of the game, you kind of see where they collide. And so you mentioned the 12%. You also mentioned the fact, look, this is a group that in tough situations, in critical situations, you just had miscues. You had uncharacteristic things that I don't think anyone expected. I certainly didn't expect it. I think that's just kind of where I sit with this game, Dylan, is that I didn't expect, like, you could have given me 15 outcomes of this game, and this would not be one that I said, this is what happens. Like that, I just wouldn't have said that would what happens. Wanted to get to this too. And for the folks saying that Jaden Daniels didn't do it, you remember, what about the 3rd and 11 pass to Mason Taylor to get the first down? Like, the idea that you lost this game because of Jaden Daniels, I just don't think we were watching the same game. Like, that's what I got to say. I know I saw some complaints about the interception too. Like, where was Malik Neighbors? He fell down. Now, I will say this. I was disappointed in the offensive play calling because that comeback route and the out route, they went to it too much. And one of the biggest reasons for that pick was obviously Neighbors slipped. But the defensive backs, and we're going to get to the defense for LSU in a second, the LSU defensive backs, good Lord. We're going to get to that in a second. But the defensive backs for Florida State started to sit on those routes. You could tell that's how he was able to get the pick and be right there.
I mean,
Kind of your
they
thoughts.
called the play 3 straight times at the end of the half.
I mean, it's just I don't know. I mean, we were told there was going to be creativity. I didn't see it. And look, I get Florida State's a great team. I get that they've got a guy in Jared Verse that top 10 pick, top 5 pick, maybe. Like, I mean, the kid's unbelievable. But with the weapons, with the talk, I needed to see more creativity, and I just didn't see that in this game. And I think that's what's disappointing offensively. You didn't see the creativity, and if you felt like you were that outmanned in this game, that's concerning to me as well. Like, if that's the reason you couldn't be creative, that's concerning. Kind of your thoughts as we kind of wrap up the offensive talk.
We're gonna get to this on the defense as well. I'm just gonna echo what you said. It was coaching, like a lot of coaching, and drops. I mean, it's a little bit of everything, but I'm gonna point to coaching for a lot of that because we saw LSU open up. It was a really interesting first couple drives. Maybe there's some mistakes with it, but they weren't predictable, and they were a little bit more creative. But as soon as there was a little bit of controversy, they reverted back to the scared team that we saw a lot last year when everything started to go bad. We didn't see it was an opposite of what happened in the Florida State game last year, where they started off really slow and then opened it up at the end. And it's hard to win whenever you're slowing down towards the end of the game in what was a close game at half.
No, I completely agree.
I'm putting this, again, nobody is safe from criticism, but I'm putting this one on the coaches. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and as we kind of flip over defensively, I mean, Brian Kelly owned it, which in the post-game presser, I mean, saying that it's his responsibility. I do think there's several execution aspects that come with that. You have to be able to, you got to be able to punch it in on the 1 yard line, especially if you're going to be a physical football team, which LSU wants to be. If you're going to say that your offensive line is as heralded as it should be, I think that it's great. I want to get to this comment right here. War of Roses, appreciate you tuning in, because I think it's one of my last points here about the offense. I got my number 2 pencil here too, Dylan, that I'm ready to take notes with. Florida State was man on man on the outside in the red zone, and then our receivers couldn't win 3 straight times. Okay, I'm going to go here because I didn't grow up an LSU fan, so I don't have the ties here. LSU's had a history of great receivers, like elite receivers. We talked about them. I drafted one on my fantasy team last week. Like, it's great. The receivers, to me, they've got to prove something. Like, Malik Neighbors is a very good receiver. But just because you don the purple and gold, just because you wear the LSU helmet, you can't you're not just going to step in automatically. The receivers have got to learn how to, win some battles. You got to be able to win one-on-ones. And that's going to help Jaden Daniels. I mean, once again, Florida State's a really good football team. And I think that we're going to see this group mature. But look, if we get into a situation where it's Malik Neighbors and Mason Taylor for the whole season, that's a problem. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. had a good game, inflated by the numbers at the end there. But Kyron Lacey, I mean, look, it's too early to talk about jobs to me in positions. But I think by the end of the season, it wouldn't surprise me, Dylan, to kind of see some of the young guys get a chance. And another guy, and, Aaron Anderson. I mean, Dylan, I'll ask you this, Dylan, how much did you put your head in your hands when the muff punt occurred?
Honestly, I didn't. I just laughed. Again, you weren't here last year to see it. It happens so often and so frequently where I laughed. It was funny to me. And again, that's another thing that we saw them say that they were going to address in the offseason. Hey, we have guys, they want to play special teams. They want to do this. They want to do that. And yet we're having the same exact mistakes. A year apart from it happening 3 times in the game, it happened again against Florida State. And it wasn't just the one muffed punt. Let's do the obvious thing: offense, special teams, defense, because there are a couple things on the special teams I want to talk about right now. There was an almost muffed punt with Greg Clayton. Aaron Anderson needs to learn how to call a fair catch because there were 3 times no momentum catching the ball at the 5-yard line and then in trying to run it back. You're a playmaker, but just call a fair catch at one point. It's also hard on the offense to start on the 14, 17, 18-yard line every drive because the special teams doesn't know how to get the ball to the literal minimum starting spot on a kickoff.
Yeah.
It was mind-boggling to me. There was no blocked punt, there were no blocked field goals, no blocked punts. Cool, we fixed that, I guess. Damian Ramos, we were high on him going into the game, but that was about all that went right on special teams. And the guy that everyone blamed last year is not on the staff anymore. So now you really have to be like, what's going on? The guy's not even the guy who is in charge of special teams anymore is an athletic director now. And you're still having the issues of players not being able to fix the smallest parts of what makes special teams work.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, but I did laugh. I had to laugh at that point because I'm just my mind is broken. My mind's melted.
You had to laugh so you don't cry. Let's talk defense here. I mean, you mentioned you hit on special teams. Okay, so defensively, I want to start with the positives. Mekhi Wingo is a monster. He looked good. I mean, I think that he did a very nice job from the interior. I'm excited to see what this group looks like when they get Mason Smith back, because I truly do think, like, defensive line wise, it was a solid performance.
Oh,
They didn't get to the quarterback. Braden Swinson, like, that was a bright spot. Swinson looked good. They didn't
Mekhi
get
Wingo
to Travis.
Mekhi Wingo still looked like an All-American to me. I thought he was he had an amazing game.
Yes.
He was the best pass rusher.
Yeah, no, I mean, and from the interior, I mean, that just it could be dangerous. But let's get to the elephant in the room.
Okay, I have something. Can I start? Can I start here?
Yeah. So how about this? You take this one, and I'm going to take the secondary. Roll with it.
Okay. And how do you game plan your best player, one of the best players in college football, out of your defense? Harold Perkins, off ball linebacker, cool. It was an experiment. It didn't work out. He rushed the passer 7 times last night. 7 times. And you know what? He got credited with 2 hurries. He was like second on your team in hurries in 7 pass rush attempts. How does that make any sense to you, Bryce? Like, if you have him in coverage 28 snaps, I want to say, and then you have him rush the passer 7 times, he does great whenever he does it. And then it got to a point where you're using him so poorly, like by the time that they're like, okay, well, he's lining up here, he's going to rush the passer now, so we can adjust for that. The whole point is if you use him correctly, they don't know when he's going to do either, because he can do both. He was all right in coverage, and you know what? The one thing people were worried about him was with tackling, and he was fine. He was actually a very good tackler last night. He didn't miss any tackles. He stopped people with forward momentum. He looked stronger.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like he would be a better player, but he was, a non-factor because you game planned him so poorly that even whenever you gave him the chance to rush the passer, he still did it twice, 2 out of 7 times. But those other 5 times, it was so obvious what you were going to do. They were able to stop the most dynamic player on your defense. So again, right back to what we were talking about on offense. This is on the coaching. Matt House, really, really poor game plan. And then it goes down to whenever you have a really good game plan and then players who can't execute. And I'll let you, we can go to what you're we can go to what you're talking about, because I think overall the front 7 played fine. Omar Spates looked good. Where was Greg Penn? What were you doing with Harold Perkins? Whenever you have Omar Spates and Greg Penn playing on playing your middle linebackers, you don't need another one. They're fine. They'd be one of the best linebacker duos in the country because Omar Spates is really, really good. Greg Penn has always been serviceable.
Yeah.
I don't know why you need Harold Perkins to play this off-ball spot also.
So I'm going to add something to that, and I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. But the Perkins thing, like, we're sitting in the press box and we start to you kind of start to pick up on it. I'm sure, look, if you're watching, fans at home, you started to kind of pick up on it as any person would. I mean, this is one of the guys that in college football, not just on the LSU roster, that you're sitting there saying, we want to find him. Like, where is he? Where is number 4 on the field? And we were just mesmerized. I think one of the things that concerns me and I'm disappointed by is the fact that you felt it was a good time to experiment in a top 10 matchup. Like that for me, that raises the eyebrows, because experimenting in this game, and I'll even say this, why would you, and you said it, why would you experiment? Like, why would you take away something work? I understand that he's trying to learn the position, and you know what? It's not going to matter this weekend against Grambling because, God forbid that you start sluggish in that game. But he's going to wreak havoc in that game, and everything's going to be fine. And then they'll roll into Mississippi State, and they'll say, well, he had a good week here. Well, the difference in competition. When you're playing a team the caliber of Florida State, you have to put your best foot forward. And I'll just say this, I don't think they did. You mentioned it. I don't think that the management of Harold Perkins was putting the best foot forward to try and win this football game. That's just my opinion. I'm not a coach. That's just kind of what I saw. Let me talk about the secondary here. Once again, Dylan, bamboozled. Lied to. No, I'm just kidding. It's
run amok.
This is run amok. What in the world? Let's start with this. Keon Coleman is one of the biggest human beings that I have ever seen in my life, and he's a receiver. He walked into the post-game press conference. I'm like, that guy, that's a defensive end. That's an outside linebacker. That's not a wide receiver. And I want to give them credit. Look, Florida State had a great game plan. You mentioned it. They made second half adjustments to a T and then came out and executed. The only reason that this offense stopped scoring was because the clock hit 0. It's a tough thing to hear. That's exactly what happened. The only reason the clock hit 0 on this game, only reason they didn't score was because the clock hit 0. That being said, you're probably not going to face a wide receiving core like Florida State again, but I do think that we saw the concerns. We saw, and look, I raised the flag, and I know that we kind of had, obviously some back and forth and some conversations on this, but it's a problem. Deuce Chestnut, didn't look good against Keon Coleman, but I think you're going to have two schools of thought on this, and I want to know yours, Dylan. Major Burns gets mossed. I don't know what else Major Burns really could have done. And Brian Kelly said that. These guys were just making plays. Now, I think you can compare and say, look, LSU's got to find some receivers that can go make plays, and we can have that conversation all day long. Secondary-wise, this is the hand you're dealt this season. You're going to have to figure it out. Zy Alexander, he didn't look terrible, but, is it asking too much of a guy to be truly a number one corner on a team, that he was at the FCS level last year? Deuce Chestnut, look, I covered the ACC for 4 years. There is a noticeable talent gap outside of a Florida State between that and, what's happened there. So, also look, we heard all camp and we saw it. He's kind of a dog guy. He's a guy that's going to get up and be physical with you. When a guy's 6'7", 230 pounds, you're not out physically him. That's just not happening. Secondary-wise, Major Burns, Andre Sam, I talked about in fall camp, I like the closing speed of Andre Sam. This is where it sits for me. It's different when you play a game. And when you play a team that has elite skill talent like they do, and a quarterback that, and I'll put the soap in my mouth, I'll put my foot in my mouth. I didn't know if Jordan Travis could be elite. He's not. He's more than the game manager. This guy was delivering ball, letting his weapons work. They had a great game plan. Johnny Wilson, another guy that really just tore up this secondary. Dylan, I don't know, man. I know we're kind of getting to the end of this show, but look, the secondary, you got to figure that out, because I'm not a doomsday person. I'm not going to sit here and say you can't accomplish what you want to accomplish. You're really not going to figure out a lot this weekend, just because of the opponent. What you will figure out is when you go play Mississippi State. 11 a.m. kickoff in Starkville against a guy in Will Rogers that's got good experience at the quarterback position. I know they're not truly running the air raid anymore, but he's still he's a good quarterback. And you're going to be tested in that. And I think that this secondary, at some point, it's got to become personal. Like, I know they probably don't watch the show or listen to this, but it's got to become personal when the talking heads say, "Hey, I don't think that you have the talent there." You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that you can do that. So whether it's a scheme thing, whether it's a personnel thing, that's something they've got to kind of fix going forward. But what were your thoughts and your takeaways from the secondary in this game?
This is the best secondary that they're going to face all year. This is the best wide receiver group the secondary is going to face all year, and I mean, if not the most talent, by far the biggest mismatch that they're going to face all year. These are two really good players. Johnny Wilson, drops aside, had a really good game, and of course, Keon Coleman looked like a revelation. Looked like the best player in college football. I mean, we're talking about these two wide receivers making the plays that LSU needed
their receivers
to make, because Jordan Travis did not have the best game of all time. He made mistakes. He made poor decisions. He made missed throws. There were miscommunications. We saw a lot of the same stuff that Jaden Daniels had issues with, Jordan Travis made issues with. But the thing was, Jordan Travis's weapons played through it. Jordan Travis's weapons helped him out whenever there was a little bit of a mistake, minus the drops. There were still some bad drops there. But yeah, Keon Coleman just looked like one of the best wide receivers we've ever seen. But overall, yeah, this was a bad performance by the secondary. It was kind of what the worst case everyone hoped for. There were a couple good plays where they're like, okay, they know that they're mismatched with height. You had the hands reaching up, breaking up passes. There were a couple of really nice breakups in there. There was a nice interception by Deuce Chestnut, but they just looked really, really poor. I think that's the way to say it. That's the only way you can say it. And it was a bad game made worse by some amazing catches. Whenever there was good coverage, a better receiver. So yeah, it's kind of looking like the mistakes that we saw. But again, this is the worst. This is the worst it should look in terms of opposing talent.
I'm not on the. I mean, Dylan, I know I predicted LSU to win this game in our predictions last weekend or last week. But if you go back to my season predictions,
you had
I
the
predicted
biggest
10
score
and 2.
gap. So
I did. I don't know what I was thinking. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. But I did predict in our season predictions 10 and 2 losses to Florida State and Alabama. Is that still attainable? Yeah, heck yes. This team also lost, but the way that they lost is concerning. And I do agree with Kelly. I need to see, for me to feel confident in this team, I need to see how they come out against Grambling, because that's a game where you need to exercise some demons. You need to come out and you need to absolutely blow them out of the water. It should never be close. And then Mississippi State.
This is the game where realistically in the past LSU might win 36 to 38-7. I'm talking LSU needs to put up like 50. Like, and sorry, Grambling. Sorry.
Yeah. Enjoy the
LSU, check. LSU is gonna have to really make it look like Oklahoma versus Arkansas State out there. Like, this is gonna be a game where make the starters play longer than you might have. Make Jaden Daniels play. Make Malik Neighbors play. Make your guys play longer than you maybe would have. Let them exercise some demons. Maybe let them just figure it out in live time. Get it working. That's all we can really say. Make it look good. Have a good game. Play a long time and run up the score. Maybe, work it out in your head.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you there. LSU drops the contest 45-24. Really wasn't that close either. 3-score game, how it came down to it, as the Tigers drop one in Orlando. But listen, next week's a new week. We're going to talk with Coach Kelly this week and I think dive into some of these questions, the analysis. It's a big reason. We got a great deal happening, 50% off our Go 24/7. It expires tonight, so you need to make sure you take advantage of that. Get on board, join the message boards, because it's an interesting conversation happening, interesting stuff going on as we get closer and closer to week 2. We're fully in the swing of college football. Hey, and help us out. If you're watching this after the fact, or you're listening, let us know in the comments below or, on social media. What should we call this? I go 24/7. What should we call this little podcast? We'll be live every single Sunday night, though, after games, kind of really just, taking a step back and, really reviewing what happened on that Saturday. But for Dylan Sanders, my name is Bryce Koon. We appreciate you. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, keep those numbers climbing. And if you're listening on podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you get it, make sure you give us a follow there as well. We'll keep you in tune for next time. Set up those notifications so you know when we go live. We'll catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.